Hi, everyone. Carmine Denisco here with the UIA Workshop Series, Educational Series, whichever you want to call it. We got some great guests. We've had some awesome past shows, a lot of information we've been talking about. I want everybody to meet my co-host, Mr. Warren Tuttle. Warren, what's happening, my friend?
I'm doing great, Carmine, but every time I come on Zoom, it's a different lighting structure. I don't know. I need to get a professional studio. I'm going to build one.
Yes, that's that's what you need. That's all.
Yeah, that's all I need, right?
Hey, Warren, man, everybody's getting their book in the mail. What's the deal?
Yeah. So my book, Inventor Confidential, is officially releasing on March 23rd, available on Amazon. But I got a few advanced copies to send out to friends and family and influencers. And so people are starting to get their books and starting to do posts. So it's very exciting now. Now we'll see. I've read it 100 times. Now we'll see what other people think of
You're
it.
your own worst critic.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah, very much so. But it was 2 years. 2 years of it took a long time. So
hey, I mean, I know that your wife and your daughter, did they read it? Are they critical of it? Did they think it was awesome?
My wife and daughter's critical.
I didn't say that.
They were all English majors in college, so they think it's a big joke that I'm an author now. I always say they got me a Sherlock Holmes hat and a pipe for Christmas. It's a big joke. It's a totally big joke. But anyway, it's not a literary work of art, but I think it reads well, and it's a lot of first person singular, and it really from tip to tip. If you read through it, there's a lot of valuable stuff from the inside. It's written from the inside of companies and the inside knowledge, and also a macro view of innovation today in America. So there's a lot of stuff going on there.
Awesome. That's great to hear. I'm just so glad. I mean, over this time, it just must be good. You're getting to the point where it's going to be out for sale.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to come out in the fall, and COVID knocked it back. And so, and I probably started my promotion a little early on it. Everybody's probably sick of it by now, but it's finally here, and it's pretty exciting. So, but thank you. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I can't wait. I ordered my copy, and I can't wait to get my copy in the mail. So.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that.
Very cool. Well, what do you got for us today?
Well, listen, we have a great show today. We have John Ellis with us, and I'll introduce John in a second. But the great part of our show series, which started last year, and I think we're up to almost our 30th show now, is we really go in a lot of different directions. And we've talked about hit products and successful inventors and all types of things. But today we're going to go into product development, and serious product development. John's a very serious product developer. I met John last year. He lives up in the Boston area. He's an optical engineer. And let me just bring him on the show and say hi. John, how are you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm great. As they say in sports talk radio, our first time, long time. I listened to your podcast in the past, Carmine. I recognize your voice, and I always thought you had great content. And first time calling, and happy to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
He's got a smooth voice. He's got $1 million voice, Carmine. Which is why I always talk over him.
No, Warren, you got to stop saying that, John. Everybody's been telling Warren he talks over me.
Yeah, let Carmine speak this, but we certainly will, and Carmine jump in. But hey, listen, it's this is really exciting to me because Carmine, I'm a fundamentalist. When it comes to product development, I know you are too. There's just so many folks teaching shortcuts and making things look simple and easy. And it's not. And I sit on the other side of the desk for 20 submissions a day, and I see the same mistake being made over and over again. So John, I am so excited. I have to say it to everybody that John and I have worked on a project together, and we recently, John signed a licensing deal that I was very involved with.
Wow.
And, but we can't talk about it. Okay. So because the product's not on the market yet. And it is something with Lifetime Grants that Lifetime Grants is extremely excited about. And the cool thing was that John was so easy to work with, and because of his knowledge. So we'll come back to that. But the reason why I asked John to come on the show is because he really is an expert in product development, has his own business and company. So John, I thought we would start like giving you the floor and take us back as far as you want to how you got into engineering, how you got into product development, optical engineering, and maybe even from school, wherever you want to go, and sort of lead us up to where you are today.
All right. Well, I'm actually not an optical engineer. I was a history major in college, and I was working in marketing jobs after that. And I was working for a technology company that was kind of unique. They were publicly traded. They had developers in Israel. They had developers in Ukraine. And that company went bankrupt in 2002. So I was out of a job. And I was playing ultimate frisbee that summer and was talking to some guy after the game, and he's like, "Oh, I've got these software engineers in this city in Ukraine called Lviv, which is a little city. It used to be Polish, was part of Galatia. It's a very beautiful city in Western Ukraine, so close to the Polish border." And I was like, "Well, wow, that's interesting. I know people in Ukraine," and there were all these physicists there that I knew. Now, I didn't really know much about physicists or optical engineers, but I realized that I was out of a job and they were probably out of a job. And so I reached out to them and partnered with them. And I've spent the last 20 years trying to figure out what an optical engineer does and who needs one. And so actually, there's a lot of people who need optical engineers. And so we work on all kinds of projects, and we're usually kind of, contract for hire, hired guns. And the expertise of the people is physics and ray tracing and designing lenses. But there's a million things that include optics that you might not think of. So we've done optics that went inside a Barbie doll. We did the lenses on some of the first self-driving cars. We did a subsystem that was used in the Xbox Kinect motion capture video game where you could wave your hand and it would be integrated into the video game. We've done street lights, these little indicator lights that you might see on a Ring doorbell. That's a customer of ours. Simply Safe is a customer of ours. Sonos music players, Netgear routers, anything that's got light, button on your car stereo. Somebody's got to design that. There's also medical devices, endoscopes, ophthalmoscopes, underwater cameras, laser imaging systems, tattoo removal systems. There's just a million things that either are sending light because you're trying to effect some treatment or light something up, or collecting light because it's a camera. And we've done smartphone cameras, attachments of smartphones. So people come to us in different stages of development, and some of the companies are big Fortune 50 companies, and some are just people with ideas. But usually it involves optics somehow, sometimes optics and sometimes electronics. And they run the gamut from, having a 10-page requirements document about exactly what it is that they need to, well, I got an idea, and, then, during the call, I'm Googling, and well, that's, somebody already has that idea,
That's interesting. But well, let me stop it right there because I want to delve into that a little bit. By the way, can you do anything about the lighting here in my studio? Anyway,
very expensive, Warren. Extremely. I don't know if you could afford us.
I probably could. But hey, before we go into that, I just wanted to ask you, because I'll forget later. When you say you're working, with Russian scientists and so forth, are you familiar with TRIZ? And are you familiar with any of that product development that came out of the Soviet Union? Are you familiar with that?
TRIZ, I don't know that, no.
Yeah, it's an acronym for Russian scientists who were actually prisoners of war during World War II that developed a whole codified a system of product development. I actually write about it extensively in the book. So anyway, you might want to bring it up to them because it's pretty.
Oh, sounds smart. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so before we get into how people come to you, maybe just take one of your projects, like the self-driving car. Maybe use that as an example. Tell a story about that, and then what is it that you're looking to accomplish and give back to your client?
So in that case, that's a very large publicly traded billionaire company now, but it was started by people who were doing DARPA is an acronym for the Defense Research Department. And in the early 2000s, they were doing these kind of contests to see whether you could drive an autonomous car around the desert. And this guy and his brother were kind of hobbyists, and they made some cars, and their cars were not good, but their mapping systems were really good. And so other people wanted to do their mapping systems. That's what's called LiDAR. It's basically sending out pulses of lasers, and it's spinning around really quick, and it's making this map. so he had the very early systems, but needed somebody to design the lenses that were going to shape the lasers and shape the beam of the laser as it came out, as it went out, and shape the lenses that collected the light. So that's this thing where you have very specific requirements. It's like the laser chip is this number of microns by this number of microns. It's this wavelength, and everything's got to fit in a certain size. So it's the kind of customer that they knew pretty close to what they needed to do, and they just needed to know how to design it and make it work, and that's what we did.
So now, do you actually, build functioning prototypes for them? And
in that time, I don't remember if we did. We might have. We often do. People usually expect, and this is, this can happen during product development, and is important for listeners to think about is, you don't want to be in a situation where everybody's pointing the finger when the thing is delivered and it doesn't quite work, and so we have kind of an integrated team. There's an optical engineer and mechanical engineer and electronics engineer, but sometimes in other systems you might put all those skill sets together or try to hire different contractors, and then the pieces don't really work together. And the same is true with making a prototype. Sometimes you'll have somebody deliver a design and then somebody else makes it, and then it gets to the customer and doesn't work. Well, why didn't it work? Well, the manufacturer didn't meet their tolerance requirements or manufacturing requirements. The manufacturers, well, no, that design isn't going to work. So usually it's better for the customer if we my company is delivering a system. Now that's not always true. It depends on the customer. Like somebody like the people who make Barbie doll, like they know how to make things. They've got more people sourcing in China than I have employees, so it kind of depends.
So you said, so I interrupted you when you're just getting to the people come to you with varying degrees of either expertise or discipline. Some have a 10-page paper describing in detail what they want, and some just a sketch.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that and how that works.
Well, you and I spoke about this a little bit yesterday, and I've heard people like you and Carmine say, the inventors come to me and, you're like, always got to keep an open mind and all this kind of stuff. And I don't have an open mind. People call me with an idea and I'm pretty sure it's going to fail because pretty much every idea fails. It's very few that get through, and even fewer, that somebody succeeds with the original idea that they had. And there's so many different reasons that things fail. So I feel like I am closed-minded, but willing to be proven wrong. And so what that means to me is somebody calls and says, I want to develop some new speaker. Okay, well, great. Like Bose makes speakers. Cambridge, there's like 1 million speaker companies, and you're never going to do that. That's not going to work. What's so special about you? Well, I happen to have this technology that I just spun out of MIT, and I'm the only one in the world who knows this. And now I'm like, okay, well, all right, so maybe I will change my mind a little bit about this, and I've got this person on my board of directors, and he was the chairman of Bose or something like that. Okay, so I was pretty sure this new speaker company was going to fail, but now I'm willing to be persuaded that
benefit of living in Boston, Carmine.
That's all Boston local. Pretty myopic here, but so people, there's all kinds of challenges, right, in launching a product. From is the patent space open? Is there a customer for it? Is there a customer for it at the price that you can make it? How are you going to sell it? There's just so many different things that can go wrong. I try to be realistic when somebody calls.
Do you try to be a full service? Like if someone comes to you in that case, you want to do the whole project from researching the IP and patents to
No,
developing?
no, we don't do it. I don't have time for that. Like, I expect our customer to know whether somebody needs this or not. I mean, we're kind of like, the engineers are very smart, but like we don't know anything about the application. And I expect people to come to us to know that there's a market for what it is, and what the price point for that is, and we're not like an invention shop. So an inventor might come to us. They might come to us when they realize it's a fantasy that somebody's going to buy their idea, and that they need to prove to somebody that this thing that was their idea can be compressed into something mechanical that a bigger company would know how to manufacture, and could do it at a price, and the customer exists for it. So people come to us, sort of, they've already had some of the thought process about.
Do you, as you're developing it, if they haven't filed for IP, then as you give it back to them, they file their own intellectual property?
Yeah, we get named on patents and things, but we assign the rights to those companies, because we're, they hired us to figure out a problem.
So have you ever had a product that you worked on, you didn't build a functioning prototype, and then later it couldn't be made? It ended up truly failing. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we've had, there's, in product development, there's different reasons that, kind of things can go wrong. And, well, one example would be trying to put too many features into something, or over specifying something, and throwing every feature in that you can imagine into a product, to the point that it becomes very complex to manufacture, very expensive, and just misses the market need.
Mhm.
So yeah, I can think of programs where, at the kind of requirements definition stage, it was, it looked like it was going to be incredible on paper, but it just was too difficult to
It
execute.
just didn't materialize. Well, do you correspondingly, as you're developing it, are you thinking of where it's going to be manufactured, and if it's mass manufacturable, and or all these things, or do you develop it first and then start to look into that?
No, you have to start with that, because where you end up will determine, where you start. So, just using the use case of optics, sometimes lenses are glass and sometimes they're plastic. And, if you're only ever going to make 100 of these, then making something out of plastic means you have to, buy an injection mold, which is going to cost tens of thousands of dollars. And you're never going to amortize the cost of that tooling over those 100 units, but if your target market is, going to make 50,000 of these, then, okay, then that might work for plastic. And so you kind of ought to know what you're doing, going in. And, that is something that I do, ask when I'm talking to people. And it's not always obvious, like, why am I asking this? But I can think of, I was with a startup a year or so ago, and they're making 3D printers. And I said, so, who's your customer? And the guy said, well, anyone who wants to buy it. Okay, all right, anyone who wants to buy it. So I think, okay, this is some kind of home thing, maybe they're gonna. And then I walk into this room to see their 3D printer, and it's about 8 feet tall, and it's about the size of 2 pool tables, and I'm thinking, I don't think anybody's. I said, how much does this cost? Well, $2.5–3 million. I was like, yeah, I think your target market here is probably about, maybe there's 8 companies in the world, so like this, anyone who wants to buy it, that doesn't really move me ahead in my visualization of like what kind of cost solution you're gonna have.
Any government that wants to buy it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now, was this an inventor or was this
This was an established company, and I mean, it was just the way he was communicating. But yeah, I mean, they had raised a bunch of money and they had a good. I think they're doing fine. But
Yeah.
you know, you ought to know who your customers, and you ought to be able to verbalize.
Well, you said it, and I'm going to let Carmine jump in because he knows a lot about manufacturing. But you said before that, you take a negative view that everything, is kind of a failure until it's proven otherwise. At what point, do you start to feel a little excited and confident? Is it when you finally have a working version that proves function, or is it before then?
Yeah, no, it can be before that. It's sort of more about has what have I learned about the customer's team and their market and the idea that they're going after. So like two different kinds of customers, like somebody wants to develop like an IR a VR Google glasses kind of thing, and they're like a startup, like two people, right? So and maybe they have the money to pay me, and maybe they even got a patent that's they say it's good patent, whatever. But Apple's doing that, Google's doing that, they've got hundreds of engineers, unless you really have something special, I'll do the job for you, but I don't have high confidence this is going to work out, And then you look at somebody else, like we have this customer, and they make they're making these, they look like floats that would float around your pool to test the chlorine, but they're actually testing for algae blooms in water supplies. And so the incumbent technology in those things are the buoys that get anchored to the ground, and they're like $20,000-$30,000, and they were designed in the 1990s. And this company has a new product concept. The price is going to be a tenth of it. It'll float independently. It's going to be wireless and talk to the cloud. And they're going against a slow, dull incumbent that's been around for 30 years and has never innovated anything. And they've got a product idea that just kind of makes sense. So kind of what the market looks like, if it's something that like everybody knows that it's a huge market, and and they're spending a lot of money at it, versus like, well, there's this neat niche that I understand, and there's like an incumbent who's really kind of slow to move, and I can disrupt that. That second kind of thing is more exciting to me, because I can see the path that's going to lead them to success.
Do you sometimes, while you're taking on these jobs, evaluate not only the product, the opportunity, the engineering part, but the person as well? And sometimes have you backed off before because you just didn't have confidence in their abilities?
I have, but not so much because I didn't have confidence. It was more about I personally, I didn't like they like yelled a lot or something like that. They didn't like the way they treated people, or if somebody doesn't know, I mean, I didn't know anything about optics when I started the company, and I don't want to judge somebody based on like what they know now, because people who are passionate can hustle and make connections, and if they're willing to learn and whatever, then they're going to be as successful or more successful than like the expert who already knows everything.
Hey, Carmine, you jump in because Carmine does a lot of product development and manufacturing, and so I'm sure you have, and also getting in questions. So.
No, it's great information. It's good to have somebody like John on. It helps me because some of the things he's talking about are things that I deal with clients, and a lot of clients are so passionate and they have some great ideas, and I like what John's talking about. Now, John, on your end, what I talk to clients about is sometimes the product is not as important as the plan to not only create but also take it to market. How do you feel about having that plan in before they even get started?
Yeah, I mean, sort of a minimum viable product. I mean, you always want to see that, you know, something you can correlate to where you're going to go, right? So, like a lot of customers will come, and something that gives me confidence, feel like, okay, this is going to work, is like maybe they're already selling something that's pretty similar. And this is just sort of an upgrade or an update with some new features or something like that. But anyone who's demonstrated that they've been able to get somebody to give them money for something, that's a big milestone. So if you've shown that, like, you can get someone to write you a check, and not just an investor, because investors, you might have a rich uncle who just likes you. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but somebody who's going to pay you money for whatever thing you're delivering, that's a big thing. And so, yeah, even if it's, smaller or different or something than where they want to go.
Do you sometimes take on projects in areas that you're, not as familiar with? And then I'm going to give you an example. I'll tell you why I'm asking the question. So I get these submissions all the time. And I got one yesterday, and the inventor was wonderful, but it was classic. So the idea came through. I have an idea for a baking pan that could be 7 inches, 8 inches, 9 inches, or 10 inches, and it expands. Okay, it expands to fit. Okay, great idea if it could be made. I happen to have been down this path at least a dozen times before, and I actually looked into one years ago. It's almost, I would almost say it's impossible to build that type of pan, because if you're expanding, there's leakage. It's expensive. There's all types of things. So I actually got back to the inventor and I said, it's been tried before. It hasn't been done, but show me what you have, because, you never know. Maybe you figured it out, Well, we haven't built one. It's just an idea. It's a concept. So my point being that, if someone came to you with that type of thing, or do you evaluate it early on? And what if it's in an area like baking that you know nothing about?
So we know about optics, right? And we know a lot about optics, but we don't know anything about applications. So, whether it's going to go in a $2 toy or, a $50,000 space satellite, if it's sending a photon or collecting a photon, that's optics for us. And we don't know anything about the rest of it. And, you're talking about sort of mechanical design there. Maybe there's some thermal design because it gets heated. And I mean, that wouldn't be something that we would take on. But, in kind of like initial discussions with people, I do kind of shoot at their ideas a little bit. I mean, not like being negative, but like try to probe and see, see if I really think there is anything. And sometimes people come and then they would talk to me for, half hour and they say, yeah, well, I guess that's not really going to work.
Well, you find out a little bit more about the person too. So how do you get clients and customers? Do they find you in the yellow
It's
page?
referral and, just Google searches and things like that. There's not that many, companies that sort of do what we do.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Carmine, you got any products that need optics?
Yeah. It's funny that we talk about this. Is what's going to be weird is I'm probably going to get 3 optic type products, within the next, it seems like, and I don't know if this happens to John. It's like whatever we talk about, think about, all of a sudden those come around. And John, do you find there's things sometimes happening in the world that create inventors in different countries and different parts of the world that start thinking of almost the same product? They're not exactly the same, but do you ever get where, you get products that are very similar at the same time?
So I thought that would happen all the time, and it does happen, sometimes that, in certain kinds of industries, like there's different kinds of street lights, and they all have to meet these very specific government requirements, and so there could be a couple different companies that all want to meet this government requirement. But then when you kind of drill down, everybody's a little bit different. They're going to use a different LED for it or a different package size, and so they're everybody's kind of got their own spin on things, and so it's it usually sort of winds up different. But, what's happening in the world, sure. I mean, like in my business, right? So, a year ago, was doing conversations with, somebody who's going to make some kind of trade show booth display, right? So that's gone, but in the last year, I've done 3 novel flu testers, I wonder what that's for, 4 different, like, let's use UV light to kill, kill viruses in the elevator, or, some other kind of system. And they're all a little bit different, but yeah, what happens in the world is definitely like, yeah, you see it.
Now, do you take those calls when they come in, or does you have someone that screens them? At what point?
No, it's just me. Yeah. Just me. Yeah. I mean, sometimes they come in over email. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. This must be interesting from ideas. So that's my big thing, Carmine. I get a lot of idea submissions, and they haven't been vetted, and sometimes they've been coached that way. And like John said, you always kind of look at things negatively because so many of them fail, and it's hard to get on board, I find, with some of these until it's really been worked out, until there's something functioning. And then for me, John, I like to, once people have them functioning, as you know, is to see a video of it in action. Yeah. That really is. And then eventually a prototype, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, we're not going to talk about what it is we develop, but
never. We can't talk about it. No.
I get what. So when we sent Warren this idea, we had one idea, and then it was, I knew he might be interested in this other thing. He said, "Oh yeah, I'm interested in that other thing." And so, my engineers are electrical engineers, physicists, whatever, and they made something that worked at this application. And the way that they demonstrated was they made a little video of an oscilloscope, and the signals on an oscilloscope. And they said, "Here, John, look, we'd do it. This works." So I sent it to Warren. Warren passed it on, and they were like, "No, we're not interested in this. What's the, It's like, okay, fine." So then we made like a pretty prototype that was 3D printed, and then we made a video in Ukraine of like people in their kitchen, like using this thing, so you could really see exactly what it was, and then sent back to them, back to Warren, and to our engineers, this wasn't any different. This was like still the same. Still so skippable, but now, the company that Warren works with, they're like, that looks good.
Well, see that made all the difference, and that's a really important thing. It's not that people who are evaluating products are dumb. They're not. They're very smart. They're just distracted. They've got a million things going on, and they don't get it sometimes. Yeah. They don't put it in black and white. Right?
Everybody's got their own ideas. They don't want your idea. They want to make money, and you got to show them a path to make money. You got to show them that, like, this is the package size, this is what it's going to look like, this is what's going to cost to manufacture, and that you've identified a real, problem. Did you guys ever talk about the book, The Mom Test? Have you ever read that one?
Did I write that book?
No. It could have a totally different kind of theme than it is, but it really is about,
I wrote the dad test.
Yeah. It's kind of thing like Brett Kavanaugh, but anyhow,
he is an author,
Hold on, let me get my pipe.
So the Mom Test is a great book about market research, and it's basically about vetting an idea. So before you get to even making a prototype or anything like that, or your IP or whatever, it tells you how to talk to people. And the idea of the book is that if you tell your mom, "I've got this idea," she's going to say, "Wow, great, Johnny. That's so nice. You've got a great, and your friends, like, "Oh, yeah, that's such a nice idea."
Not my mom. She would have said, "Make it better. That's not good enough."
And you're not learning anything. That doesn't tell you anything. And so the Mom Test is about, how do you have conversations where you validate an idea? So, you said the other day, Warren, like, you get people, having cutting boards, okay. So you've got some cutting board invention. You don't go to your mom and you say, "I got this cutting board idea." You say, "Mom," or friend or whatever, like, "How many cutting boards do you have?" Not talking about any kind of invention that you got, "Oh, I got 6. "Oh, how much did you spend for them?" "Well, I spent between $20 and $50. "Oh, what do you use? "Well, I use this one for parties and this one for this other thing." Okay. So now we know there's a market, for people in this sort of demographic. And then, like, well, okay, well, when you're chopping onions, you know, and the cutting board starts to smell like that, is that ever no? Oh yeah, that's annoying, you know, and then maybe you can kind of get to, well, you know, what if the chopping board didn't, you know, how annoying is it, you know, like what if the cutting board didn't smell, and you know, well, that'd be good. You know, would you pay an extra $5 for that? No, I wouldn't pay, you know, or maybe yes, I'd pay for that. But you kind of lead them to you getting market information and validating your idea without corrupting the whole process by telling them, and somebody's going to give you nice feedback. So, you know,
you're listening the whole time, but you know, Carmine, what I love about John and why we spent so much time together and become friends, although we haven't met in person, but is I appreciate what he brought to the table. So for our inventor listeners out there, it's really important. When you first present something, you know, he did it very, very professionally. I got it instantly. It was a great concept and everything. And then we had discussions where I could tell from the beginning he was listening to everything I was saying. Putting it into video fashion and into a way for it to be easily understood was really important. And at no point when I asked John if he could do these things did he either say, no, I can't do them, or didn't do a good job. So it led to more conversations. You know, no licensing deal is put together on the first call. You know, it takes a lot of credibility and learning something about something. And then once the answers became more and more credible, and you realize that there was a deep knowledge behind it, it just made the whole process easier. So that's just a shout out for John.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Very cool.
Carmine, other questions coming in from outside?
Yeah. So we did get a couple questions that came in. And this kind of, it may be tough to answer, John, is just that how far along should your idea be before you try to go and get a licensing deal? In your opinion, I guess it's just a question that came in.
Well, the further along it is, the better your close opportunity is. I mean, some people take licensing deals, you know, all the way, like they've sold them, right? I mean, yeah. you because now you've taken all the risk out of it, you know? So, I mean, I would not do it at, I have an idea, you know, and you have to validate that there's a market. However you do that, and validate that you can make this thing at a price point that, you know, and I think that you don't always have to do everything. Like I try to think about like what is the skill of the company I'm going to license it to. So, you know, if my thing has a plastic box in it and the large company is, you know, I don't know, Rubbermaid or whatever, like they make 1 billion plastic boxes. So that's not going to be, you know, the risk for them, you know, yeah. But if there's something inside it that's a little different than what they do, making sure that, you know, all of those details are, you know, can be made a cost and so on and so forth.
You know, and I Inventor Confidential, there's a lot in the book about that very question. And functioning prototypes and IP is important. It's not only important for your presentation, but if you do get interest from the company, getting yourself a better licensing deal at a much better rate. So the more you're prepared. The great thing about John is not only was he knowledgeable on all those fields, but once we got the company folks involved and the tech people behind the scenes involved, he could answer all those questions and send them in the right direction. Now, not everybody has John's expertise, and not everybody has that degree of engineering, so we get it. But I just think the lesson is how you present. I got to get that book, the mom book or whatever.
The mom test. It's a really, yeah.
Yeah, and how you present, how you interact, how you feedback is really, really important in the process. And sometimes these things take a long time. Our deal took a long time. I mean, it just does, you know, sometimes. So you have to hang in there, but you got to be prepared. You know?
Hey, Warren, a question actually came in for you about that. Is there an average of how long a licensing deal takes, and how do you know if the company is just kind of stringing you along?
Well, it's like dating. No, I'm just kidding. You know, I've had deals progress in 3 or 4 months, and I've had them take probably the longest 2 years. I don't, with a large company like Lifetime Brands that I help with 40,000 products, you know, in 9 divisions, it is not unusual for it to go 6 or 8 months. You know, that's not unusual. Okay. But here's the signal, you know, are they, first of all, when you submit, are they getting back to you promptly? So in my case, you know, I'll read through the submissions and the attachments and all. And if I get back to you with emails right away asking for more information, as I did with John, then that's probably a good sign. Okay. Now I try to let people know where they stand, and it's always a communication battle. But I think that at any point, if things start going a period of time without any communication, any follow up, and you get jerked around for weeks, you know, after you're sort of engaged, then that's sort of a bit of a signal. And I think the point there is to not be impolite. But just, you know, ask people, are you serious about it? Because if you're not, that's okay too. I can take it elsewhere. And by the way, they should take it elsewhere and shop it around to other places, because at the end of the day, as an inventor, you have to do what's best for you.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And John, real quick, another question came in that maybe you could help with. Obviously, China is big, plastic manufacturing. Is there any other countries that you would recommend to do plastic manufacturing if they didn't want to go to China?
It depends on the volume and the materials, what kind of plastic material. We do a lot in China, but you know, for prototypes, there's places in the U.S. that can do it, and especially when there's like a lot of automation. We've made things at Protomold, which is a really easy company to work with. They're in Minnesota, and it's like you just upload a file and you get a quote like you know, 24 hours later, and you can update the quote, like change the material and it changes the price, and change the volume and it changes the price. So that's a super easy one to work with. It's going to depend though on what price you have to get to and how many of these things you're going to make.
John, have there been tremendous advancements in the optical arena so that you continually have to stay abreast of new developments?
I mean, the physics isn't changed, and that's kind of where what we work on. But you know, like camera sensors, like you think about your, you know, what the camera that was on your smartphone 15, 20 years ago versus now. I mean, that everything keeps getting better, and you know, LEDs keep getting brighter, and lasers keep getting more efficient and stuff. So yeah, things are changing, but I mean, the real new stuff is sort of like, you know, the architectures and how they're using them and how they're connecting them to the internet or making them smart. And that's not really stuff that changes what we do.
Do you have to go back to school, read new books, hire new people?
I read books occasionally. I read books. And yeah, we hire new people. I mean, yeah, we're always trying to learn about what's new. But
well, you know, the youngsters, you know, like my daughter does my social media, and every day she's explaining something to me, and I'm, you know, I learn.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm always learning about like marketing and stuff like that. That's definitely just people I read and follow and stuff.
Is there a mix between outside products that you take and things that you decide that you're going to develop internally?
Yeah, I mean, we started only doing outside stuff, and we've gotten more involved in kind of selling some of our own ideas. We did a toy that's actually sold a couple million units at this point, that we sort of figured out the physics of. I can show you.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh yeah.
It's a little. I don't know if you can see the animation with the.
Yeah.
But there's animated characters spinning around there, and so I mean, that you said, how long does it take to do a? Somebody said, how long does it take to do a licensing deal? So, I mean, from when we started working on something that was kind of related but not exactly that, you know, it was like 5 or 6 years, because the first thing was different. It was more expensive, and you know, people didn't want it. And so then we did the second thing, and the first license company that we licensed it to, their sort of company profile was like, they're going to have 4,000 different SKUs, different part numbers, and they're going to try to sell, a home run for them is 70,000 units of any one of those 4,000 SKUs. And for the inventor, like that's not that great, because 50,000 units, low price point, like you can't make a lot of money that way. So, but that went on for a while, and then eventually we licensed it to this company that makes that particular toy, and it's got candy in it. So that's sort of what makes it a little bit different. And they've got a lot fewer SKUs, and a home run for them is like, well, we want to sell 5 million of them. Right. And so, that road from like the first product idea to that was too expensive to the product idea that seemed to work, to license it to the company that like they did sell it, but like not enough for us to get any return, to eventually finding the company that you could license it to, that everybody, was happy. That's a long road.
Sure.
Wow. It seems like not only is the product important and the inventor to license a product, but it seems like who you license it to is just as important.
Yeah. I think so. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you guys deal with that.
Well, more than I do. But it's really important. I know I have to, as I sit in the middle, like with John and my relationship with John, I had to keep thinking, is the product that he's developing, is Lifetime Brands the right company for him? Because at the end of the day, he has to do the best. In my opinion, and we led there, that they were the biggest company in that space, and so it was the right place. But yeah, I would say, John, you must. If you're developing your own products, then you have to make a choice. And how do you find the right company?
I don't know. We kind of start with the idea, and some ideas we just make ourselves, and certain kinds of markets. Some inventors don't. Licensing just isn't. It's not even on the radar. But licensing is good for certain kinds of consumer products and things. But if you're going to sell some tool to dentists, or I don't know, some specific, like I had somebody who is he's a lobster fisherman, and people are stealing his lobster out of his pots. And
that you should be shot for that.
I think they do shoot each other. That makes me a little worried hanging out with people. And so, how do we come up with some kind of optical system that can detect this stuff? So nobody's going to license that, but you can still have a good business.
You're going to put a fake lobster in there with one of those Barbie.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of, selling products is there's so few barriers now in terms of being able to put up a good website and identify customers, and you don't have to license, but you have to have a customer.
So true. That's so true. So Carmine, we got a few other questions as we
Yeah, we do. Some of them we covered, and this might be for either one of you guys. If you determine you need to get away from the company you license with, how do you end one agreement and engage with another one, or is it dependent on the contract? I guess maybe you guys can talk to that.
Oh, this gets back to dating again. Jeez. No, I'm sorry. I'll let John go first.
I think they're often time limited, and you can, sometimes in the contract when you've written it, you want to, carve out that very specifically what it is. That the company you're licensing it to is allowed to sell it for. So, most ideas have applications in other kinds of industries. So if you've been careful when you wrote the contract about what the time limit is and how defined, the market is, it's different. And so like with this thing I just showed here, this little thing, right? So the company that we licensed it to, that I said, well, okay, a home run for them is 70,000 units, but that doesn't work for us. They sell themselves as a toy company, and this other one saw itself as a candy company. And so though it's functionally the same thing, it's different markets. So I guess that's a way you can kind of get out of something, but otherwise it's just the time limit.
No, that's really, it's so important too. And I know when we were putting our deal together, John, these are exact topics that came up. And typically you have minimums, and I call them silos, which is categories that you're allowed to participate in. For instance, in the housewares business, consumer kitchenware, that's in drawers in your cabinet is completely different than commercial kitchens, for instance, different category. So all that stuff is explorable, but at the end of the day, it is a decision of faith at the end of the day. And, John's got to make a decision. And every inventor has to make a decision. You can get all the input you want. At some point, the company's going to say, I can bend on this. I'm not bending on that. This is as far as I'm going, blah, blah, blah. And there comes a moment when you got to have to leap, make that Indiana Jones leap onto the ship. And it's the first time it's pretty scary because you don't know. And then you have to see if they come through. I'm sure that the toy company, the candy company you worked with, you didn't know you were going to sell 1 million of them out of the gate. Now you have a lot more confidence in them, right?
Yeah.
So, it's always good also that that there is information and people available for anyone to reach out to. I mean, it's you don't want to go into this blind and think you're the only one, that you're this lone person, especially with the license agreement. I would think you want to get some other people's eyeballs on it, right?
Yeah, I've had partners that I've worked with that have done this before, that have given me advice. And I don't know. I mean, for an inventor who, I guess another thing is that if this idea is your everything, then I might think make it yourself. I mean, licensing is, if you've got some other things going on, and somebody can do this better than you because of their other unique advantages, then license it. But I mean, you think about the big, huge inventor success stories in the inventor community. They made it themselves, and they found the manufacturing, distribution, and proved they had customers. And maybe later when they were really rich and sitting on their yacht, then they said, okay, now I'll license it because I'd rather go fishing. But if this one thing is your thing, then I don't know that you do want to license it, because to me that's pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
You put a lot of trust in somebody else.
We've had a couple of guests in the last few weeks, Sarah with Olive and June, and Aaron with the Scrub Daddy, that went themselves directly to market. So, and like you were saying, there is more of an opportunity today, but it still takes capital and elbow grease and a lot of stuff that, if you're shipping to Walmart, they have a telephone-sized book of shipping rules, and if you mark it wrong, it's all coming back in chargeback. So you do need a certain amount of expertise or partnership, or bring people on board. So I do have a chapter in the book called The 30 Steps of Going to Market Directly, just to get a shameless pitch here. And that's what you should put the prison through. John's right about that, but it's a journey for everyone, and they have to decide for themselves what's right for them.
Yeah, I agree. Very good. All right, my friend, we think we're going to start closing the show up.
Yeah, we're getting to the top of the hour. Listen, John, thank you so much for coming on, and it's really been a pleasure both meeting and getting to know you better.
Thank you, guys.
And, I look forward to doing more things in the future.
All right, it's been fun. I enjoyed it.
Very cool.
Keep up the good work. I mean, I think you guys are doing great service, and like I said, I've taken a lot out of listening to you guys, so I appreciate it.
Thank you, John. And we'll be looking out for this announcement on the product. You've built some interest. Some people are asking about it.
Yeah, you and me both.
It's a great product. It's the best. It's the best. I don't want to tell John now the deal set. It's probably the best thing I've looked at in the last 5 years.
Oh no!
Should have charged him more. Should charge him twice as much.
All right. Well, very good. All you listeners out there, please going out to the UIA. If you have not become a member yet, UIAUSA.org. Become a member. Let us know how we're doing. Give us a review, a rating. Let us know what you need and for what we can help you with. Also, join our UIA TV channel on YouTube. Become a subscriber. You can certainly help us out that way. For Mr. John Ellis, Mr. Warren Tuttle, the best-selling author, please going out and purchase his book. Give a listen to it either way, but it's going to be awesome. It's going to be out soon. From myself, Carmine Denisco, we thank you for listening, and we'll catch